Good morning, everyone. It's Saturday, which means it's time for yet another Salty Saturday morning. I'm your belabored producer, Mr. Kadish, and with me today is my fantastic panel of nerds, starting with the salty nerd himself, Alex, who's busy video gaming when he should be paying attention.
Belabored producer, my man. What's up, everybody? I continue to question my choices in life for waking up.
I thought you were going to say sexuality for a second.
My choices in life that led to me waking up at freaking 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday to go do a live stream. But well, happy to be here. What's up, everybody?
And he's here. He's queer. He's our shield against all things gender neutral, binary, whatever. Brian from the Popcast. He's the only reason we haven't been completely demonetized and banned. So
that's it. I am your shield. Why do you think I'm here? It's not like I'm funny. It's like they just need me here so they can talk, so they can say words that otherwise would be naughty. So it's okay. I'm here for it.
Cool. I mean, it's better that you're our shield than our beard. So I'll just say that much.
I almost said, instead of words that are naughty, I almost said an actual word that would get you demonetized. I had to, while I was talking, my brain was like, no, flip the switch. Don't say it.
Yes, self-censorship. But we have a paragon of virtue with us today, Odin from OMB Reviews. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, living the dream. Try to cook up some Irish scones earlier. Don't know how well those turned out because I don't know what an Irish scone is supposed to taste like.
What's the difference between a regular scone and an Irish scone?
It looks basically like a Southern biscuit.
I was going to say, is it really tiny?
No. At least not the ones that I made. Maybe they're supposed to be, but
I was guessing green food coloring, but hey, what do I know?
Or did you make them with alcohol? Was that part of the ingredient?
You try to offend my people. How dare you?
What do you mean?
What's offensive about that? That sounds amazing.
Oh, because you're Irish, so it has to have alcohol. You need
Get drunk off scones. That sounds great to me.
Racist.
And speaking of racist, no, I'm just kidding. WDW Pro, how you doing, buddy?
I'm happy to be here and happy to be sitting under a row of individuals whose intros sounded like Amelia Perez at the Oscars. What's going on, guys?
Yes, Dubs has decided to subject himself to our unique form of torture. Yet again, thank you for being here, Dubs. Always appreciate you taking the time out of your busy and popular schedule to slum it with the salty nerds.
Bring on the sodium.
Indeed. Speaking of sodium, we got our top list right now. Still a bit too early to do the most consistent donators, although I know Mikey, Mexican Iron Man, is aiming for that position yet again. But I want to give a big shout out to Scotty Dub, who is at the top of our super chat and contributor list for donating $200 in one super chat. Thank you, Scotty.
Holy crap.
And of course, we have our top gifters, Jillian H., Major Chai Chai, and Eric Winberg. And they're already busy at the start of today's live stream. We got 5 gifted memberships from Jillian H., 5 gifted memberships from Major Chai Chai, and of course the obligatory 1 gifted membership from Eric Winberg. All you guys are awesome. Thank you so much. And of course, what would a Salty Saturday live stream be without Mexican Iron Man coming in at $9.99? How much do I have to super chat to get the panel to sing that Amelia Perez trans song? Probably $9.99, Mike.
$9.99. Let's go.
No, I'm not singing that.
Anybody want to give it a shot?
Nope.
I don't know the lyrics, or I would 100%.
Do I want to be all over Twitter for the next 48 hours singing the song? Yeah. Nay, I say, nay.
I think it just goes from penis to vagina, vaginoplasty.
Clip it, folks. Clip it. Not that way. Clip it as in the audio. Don't clip it the other way.
What is that? Adam's apple reduction. Yes. Isn't that also part of it too?
Way to pick the safest part that you could possibly say. By the way, all super chats today, 1% go towards Mexican Iron Man's Hot Colombian Woman Sanctuary in South Carolina.
Speaking of hot sanctuary, we got Tom Connors deciding to join us.
Woo!
How you doing, Tom?
No.
Here we go.
This is an embarrassment, but as a man I was a loser, but as a woman I'm the best ever. My penis is now a gaping hole, and I will fill it with an Oscar.
I'm sorry, Odin. I feel bad for you right now.
Lord knows I can't come anymore.
Oh my God.
Vaginoplasty, it's so nasty.
Oh my God. All monetization is just gone.
Vagina.
Now, guys, this is an Oscar-nominated song. Hello.
But we will win all the Oscars. You will see in the story of how I lost my PP.
How he lost his pee-pee. If you could do the YMCA dance, the Trump YMCA, that would be better than whatever the shake weights thing was you were doing, because that does not go well with the song.
Yes. What an entrance, Tom.
Young
Good
man,
to
I
see
was
you.
once in your shoes. Young man, when you're down on your blues. Young man.
Speaking of Trump, we have another super chat for $5 from Jeremiah Hembry. Pro, did you see the new executive order that Trump did DEI?
Jeremiah, I can't keep up with all the Trump executive orders, and neither can his opposition. It's amazing, but yes, no more pronouns in emails from government officials. And I don't know if you guys have seen this, but even Buttigieg, who is not part of the government, removed his pronouns from X. So it is now becoming a trend. Trump 2.0 is very different than Trump 1.0, and I'm loving it.
Didn't AOC do it like a year ago, though?
Are you saying AOC started the anti-pronoun movement and we didn't know it?
I'm just saying, like a year ago, she removed her pronouns and it was all
One glorious thing from AOC. We salute you, AOC.
good job, big booty Latina.
Everyone's favorite big booty Latina. Yes.
Yep.
Indeed. Speaking of big booties, we got Aaron Charman, who gifted one Salty Nerd podcast membership to someone who's got a big booty, I'm sure. Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate that. And of course, Shorty Short for $2. Had Dan Vast done a cover of that song? He needs to if he hasn't.
No.
I don't know if you guys saw Gary's video on that, but he removed all the instrumentals. It was just the vocals.
Oh God!
It was the most cringe thing like you've ever
Oh
seen.
God, that
It was
sounds
so
horrible.
funny. It was so funny. Can't get enough of that. Also, guys, so our goal for today is 15 new members. We're already at 11.
Oh.
So we just need 4 more to go. Then we also have Odin's Raven Awards, which we just pinned in the chat. If you haven't voted, go over there and vote for the Raven Awards. And of course, after this live stream, we're going to be automatically redirecting you to the one and only The Brain Show. Yes, that's not misspelled. It's Brian and Shane instead of like your brain, because no brains are involved in the making of that show.
So Matt now feels the need to explain the name of our show every Saturday now.
Well, a lot of people thought it was misspelled.
It don't make no sense, man. It's misspelled. It's a combination
play on
word,
words.
man.
The play on words.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's
indeed.
where the comedy comes in.
Come on.
Hey,
comedy.
Comedy combination.
I feel like I'm on Force of Light right now. Look at these super chats, man. Holy moly!
We'll get to them in a second, Dubs.
Okay,
Don't worry.
He's got to go through his system, okay? He can't just break
I
the
have
system.
I have my format.
I mean, he's like, stop. We need to address this now.
I'm not-
Is,
I'm not Khaleesi. I don't break the wheel. You know what I mean?
he's autistically attached to his freaking format, dude. Just leave him alone.
I don't
Be
care
sure-
how much money it is. I am going to continue reading my script.
$10,000. We're not stopping.
Be sure to check out Brian's show. It's really good. It's a political show, but him and Shane have really great, fantastic takes. So I highly recommend you guys check it out at 12.
And random conspiracy theories. I just throw
Yes,
that in there.
and random conspiracy theories. So it's about a half hour after this show ends, but we're going to be sending you there right after the show. So be sure to check that out when you get a chance. Now, guys, Tom, do we have a drum roll handy by any chance? Guys, we have a new top donator in the form of Made You Say Butts for $300. Dethroning Scotty Dub.
William motherfucking Forbes.
Yes, William Forbes is back, formerly the artist known as William Forbes. I wanted to give Kadish a hard time with a new name, LOL. Southern Biscuit sounds awesome, OMB. Looking forward to y'all this year. Sad to see Dutch go, but excited Alex is on Saturdays. Enjoying the Brain Show, Brian. Pumped for today's pod. So, William, there's a possibility that Mr. Butts himself, could be returning to Salty Saturdays.
Well,
We're in negotiations right now.
Just came in his pants. I mean, it's rock hard.
Yes, we're trying to get him to show his feet more often. That's the only sticking point in his contract. But
Oh my God, will we get Alex and Dutch at the same time?
That's possible.
It's happened once before.
Happened
It has
one
happened
time
once before. But Mr. Forbes, it is good to see you again. Thank you for coming back, and thank you for making that big splash. I know Scotty Dub is going to be irate that he has now been dethroned as the top donator, top super chatter. But we appreciate you dropping that $300, all without hot girls on the panel, right? So you mentioned Force of Light, like
Hey, I identify as a woman.
You got the looks, yes, indeed. Speaking of identifying as a woman, guys, let's get to our first topic of the day, which is Leslye Headland quits Netflix. Yes, indeed.
What a tease.
I still don't believe that she's a woman, but anyway. So guys, this came down early this week, where basically Leslye Headland had this deal with Netflix, where she was basically adapting a very popular book called The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. She was not only the writer and producer, she was also the director, but she's no longer attached to the project because of quote unquote personal reasons. And every time you hear personal reasons in regards to Hollywood, it means that basically she got fired and they're letting her bow out gracefully. But basically, while she acknowledged that the decision to step away was personal, she emphasized that she believed the film would thrive without her involvement. And she said, "I thought, damn it, it's not going to work out with me involved in it, but it's going to be wildly successful." And what's interesting is we also got this great story from one of the best news sites on the internet, That Park Place. And,
Say it again.
They go into detail about why they think Leslye Headland might have stepped aside. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that The Acolyte was such a disaster that Netflix got cold feet and basically forced her out. There's a lot of interesting stuff to this article. And by the way, links to all this stuff is in the description if you guys want to do your own research. But I want to start off with Pro on this because, this is his outlet. So Pro, what's your take on why Leslye Headland decided to basically walk away from a very lucrative Netflix directing gig? Because those are her people. Those are the ones like, oh, she's a queer female lesbian filmmaker. Like, yes, give us more of that. That's usually Netflix's, kind of response to this. But why do you think she stepped away? Yeah.
Quote unquote decided. That's what we should say there. Leslye Headland, here's the deal. The emperor has no clothes when it comes to Disney Plus now. This has come out at a very unfortuitous time for the House of Mouse. We'll get to Netflix in just a minute, but I think you'll understand why Netflix doesn't want this muck attached to them. After The Acolyte, there was this big hubbub about, we got to save the show. It's been wrongfully removed. It's just a budgetary thing, right? It was so great it cost too much money to make any more of it. The viewership was there. It's the number 2 thing on Disney Plus, and then darn it, that little Luminate group over there, they put out the real ratings. And what that has done, it has created chaos with the advertisers and Disney. The reason being is that Percy Jackson was the number 1 show on Disney Plus. Now, I don't know if you all have been into Le Target or Walmart or any of these other places, Costco, Sam's Club, I don't care where you go. There's not a single stretch of Percy Jackson merch anywhere in the retail. Nobody cares. It is not a hot commodity. It is not at Hot Topic. It's not at Spencer's. It's not at anywhere. Nobody wants Percy Jackson because relatively nobody is watching Percy Jackson.
What do people want with my friend's grandma?
Listen, you can find Percy Jackson merch at mixtees.com.
Folks, here's the deal. What this uncovered was that Disney Plus, when it comes to original content, they're not making anything that anybody is sitting down to actually pay attention to. And The Acolyte, despite being number 2, had no viewership. And so when you have that situation, when it's actually revealed to the public, this is how bad, this is how poorly received this was. And the finale, that's the statistic you really need to look at. Because when it comes to linear broadcast TV, and I don't know, Kadish, if you've got the ability to pull that chart up, and I'm not sure if it's in That Park Place. There's a chart that shows each episode, how the viewership went. In linear TV, you can have a situation where a show becomes less and less popular. There it is. less and less popular, and by the end, nobody's watching. It is exceedingly difficult to make that happen in streaming. And the reason for that is, especially when you're talking about a Star Wars show, there's a phenomenon where people will wait until the final episode and then they'll binge watch the entire thing. And so because of that, it's really difficult to arrive at a place where your finale flops. Like, no matter what, your finale has to beat the prior episode. It just has to, just by the laws of the fact that people will watch this all together at once at the end, once they have a chance. Yet the finale was a total, utter flop. Done, it's over. Now, the Netflix side of this. The reason Netflix wants to run away from her as fast as they can is because they're looking at this and they're saying to themselves, there is no benefit. She's Harvey Weinstein's personal prior assistant at a time that's difficult. She cratered Star Wars into the ground. Those stats are now out there. And frankly, she probably is a royal pain, maybe even more of a royal pain than Meghan Markle to work with. Because if you're Netflix, why do you want to be associated with her? What does she bring you? There's not a single positive thing this woman gives you except a headache. And no one likes a headache.
Well, Tom Connors, I have my own tinfoil theory about this, which is basically, a couple episodes ago, much to Odin's chagrin, we talked about male feminist Neil Gaiman basically revealing himself to be like a serial abuser. And Netflix came out just this week and said that they've canceled the Sandman series. So after season 2, it's going to be the last thing. Amazon has canceled Good Omens. So basically all these projects that are based on Neil Gaiman's work and stuff like that are getting axed, and he's being blacklisted from Hollywood and stuff like that. And I think that Leslye Headland's association with Harvey Weinstein suddenly became problematic, because I don't think it has anything to do with money, because Netflix doesn't care about how much these things cost. I don't think it has to do with the fact that, like she's, queer or gay, or like whatever the case might be, because Netflix likes to support those types of creators. I think the issue with Leslye Headland is specifically because, like, if they're going to blacklist Neil Gaiman, they have to kind of like, to avoid any type of lawsuit or perception of bias, they basically have to like shelve Leslye Headland in addition to all that, because like they don't want to be seen as like playing favorites. So I think that had more to do with it than anything like financial. What's your take on Leslye Headland stepping away for personal reasons?
I mean, I can see that line of thought, but the only thing that doesn't really jive with that is that nobody else besides us has acknowledged that she worked for Harvey Weinstein. And even if they did, they would never in a million years put anything he did on her, right? So you got to think from their perspective. We know better, or at least we could, suspect that she had at least prior knowledge or no knowledge of, or even maybe some sort of assistance too. But that being said, I honestly think that Pro might be more right, that I think of the optics of how bad the Acolyte failed. And she hasn't really had a hit since what?
Since the girl she led into that hotel. I kid.
Yeah, ever. She did the Russian Doll series on Netflix, which kind of started her relationship.
And that was how long ago? Yeah. And the other side of it is, I think Hollywood is just more, in a sense, moving away from a lot more of the woke crap. So here's the thing with her. I mean, how many stories did we hear recently, and Pro, you might be able to expand on this a little bit, about how fake she is, how she kind of just basically rode this train, and people who have known her entire life have said, she's nothing like this. She's actually very based, and she's just doing this to further her career, basically.
Well, can I put out something?
So maybe that hit a wall. I don't know. Go ahead, Pro.
Let me put this out there, because this is something that you hear you used to hear it more often, and then I think people got tired of hearing it. So at the risk of making everybody go insane and say, why in the world are you doing this again? I think that Leslye Headland and the Acolyte might have been the final straw for Kathleen Kennedy, and I'm going to give you a reason why. We have said consistently over on That Park Place for about a year that you will know Kathleen Kennedy is preparing to leave Lucasfilm when the awards shows begin raining down on her head, award after award after award, because that will signal that it's time for her to have the sunset. Well, about a month ago, we found out that she was going to be honored with, just out of the blue, the American Society of Cinematographers, Kathleen Kennedy, an award from the, cinematography. What in the world? She hasn't done anything that would merit that. Yet here came this award. Now, within the last day or so, we've heard that she's going to be honored for the Oscar Wilde Awards. And I'm watching and seeing, how many more of these are going to happen? How many more awards are going to be given to Kathleen Kennedy over the next 3 to 6 months, let's say? And I'm paying attention to that. I think The Acolyte was so poorly received that it has completely scattered the plans at Lucasfilm. And, what do they have now? They've got The Mandalorian and Grogu, which, by the way, The Mandalorian and Grogu, do you know one of the key characters in that? Rada the Hutt, a cartoon character who is famous for farting. If you said to me, hey, Pro, we're going to come back with a Star Wars movie after a major hiatus, we're going to get the fans excited again, and we're going to do Mandalorian Grogu, and you said, who should we have in it? I guarantee you I wouldn't say Stinky the Hutt. I'm not going to do that. So incompetence reigns supreme. They have almost nothing going for them now. I think the Rey movie is on rider number 4. It's just over and over and over. So pay close attention. If Kathleen Kennedy continues to get awards out of the blue, then you're going to know that something is happening at Lucasfilm, where she probably isn't often in any kind of office or any kind of activity.
Odin, I want to throw this to you. So one of the interesting things about Leslye Headland's timing about exiting this project is that these numbers got released in regards to the Acolyte. And we've seen this big, I call it astroturfing, but there was this groundswell of acolytes that are saying that it was the second best, most viewed show on Disney Plus, therefore it should get a second season. And what's interesting is we have this Deadline article, which is kind of what broke the number in the industry. And they talked about how Marvel, Star Wars, and Rings of Power all underperformed last year. And The Acolyte had 2.7 billion views. And people are saying wow, 2.7 billion views. However, if you break that down, or I should say 2.7 billion minutes watched.
Minutes watched.
Minutes watched, yes. Thank you. So 2.7 billion minutes watched. And, Star Wars Theory actually did a breakdown of this where he was if you take the runtime of every episode in the first season of The Acolyte and divide it by that number, you only get about 8 million views for the season. And you have to assume that a certain number of those are just returning viewers. So it's probably about half of that much in terms of actual viewership. So maybe 4 million people watched The Acolyte. And what's interesting to me is that, if we go back to this paragon of journalism, That Park Place, they have this great article about how season 2 of Rings of Power lost 60% of the first season's audience, which was already down 65% at the beginning of the first season. And if we look at this, basically, season 1 of Rings of Power got 8 billion minutes watched, and season 2 came in at approximately 3 billion minutes watched. And if the Acolyte's really at 2.8 billion minutes watched, right? That's and that got canceled. That means that Rings of Power season 2, if Amazon didn't have so much writing for it, would probably also be canceled in addition to that. So I want to get your take on these numbers, Odin, the fact that 8 million views on the first season of The Acolyte, plus the fact that real audience is probably half that for a Star Wars show. That tells you a lot, doesn't it?
And that's why I hate these numbers. It just always drives me crazy. I wish that there was some type of metric where all companies were held to the same standard for the sake of being honest with their stockholders, right? The people that are investing in them, because I think that I don't know if they actually have the ability to do this or not. Maybe, Brian, our stockholder in Disney could maybe shed some light on this. I think that stockholders should be starting to hold these companies accountable, saying you must provide us, right, with some form, some actual real data and not just this garbled nonsense, because I can make up numbers too. That means that 162 billion seconds were watched of the Acolyte. That's so impressive. 162 billion. Did I mention a billion? But 162 of them. Don't mind the fact that it's seconds. Okay, that's a lot of time. That's the nonsense they pull, though, right? Is they say, oh, but it's 2.7 billion minutes. It's like, okay, but how many viewers is that? But it doesn't matter because 2.7 billion minutes.
Can you imagine being Disney and looking at your stockholders as being that dumb that they can't tell? Like, oh, look, guys, there's a B in the front of that word. That's a big number. Like,
can you imagine being a stockholder?
I know. It's perfect timing with that.
By the way, if they could give it, Odin, if they could give the stats in a real number that real people could understand, they'd be happy to do it. The fact that they're doing it in number of minutes shows they don't have the stats to win it with anything else.
Oh, no, absolutely. Like they don't have it. But that's what I was saying. I wish that they were almost forced to by their stockholders to actually provide that data because as you were kind of indicating there, Matthew, I think that ultimately you have to remember that these are them adding together every single minute watched, which means if you watched it for 2 minutes and then turned it off, you're adding to that time. And so that's why when they give these billions of minutes and when they give you that's roughly 8 million viewers, it's like, okay, but did those 8 million people actually watch the entirety of the show, right? And exactly like how many of them are watching the entire season or every single episode of the show itself? How many people were just, having it on in the background, fell asleep to it for all we know?
Oh,
all that gets
wrong.
added
According
on
to
to
Snyder, that is billions of dollars.
Of course, yes. The Snyder
box
math.
office revenue. It would be the biggest movie ever.
That's true. Just when you thought Disney math was bad, then Zack Snyder opened his mouth and was like, hold my beer. Because his math is even more atrocious.
Look at all my billions of
Sorry,
views.
I'm just saying. I mean,
Well, I want to throw
correct you
this
on that
to I want to throw this to the biggest Disney shareholder on the panel, Brian. Brian, they talked about how Percy Jackson, The Olympians, was the #1 most watched Disney Channel or Disney Plus series at 3 billion minutes viewed, whereas The Acolyte has 2.7 billion minutes viewed. One is seen as a huge success for Disney Plus. The other was canceled because it was such a huge failure. But their overall watch minutes are pretty similar. Do you think that this is just a case of nobody watches Disney Plus and the people who do just, aren't tuning in to Star Wars?
I would like to know how many of those views were duplicate views, because I have Disney Plus and I have 2 kids and they have their friends from school and their cousins. And there's a lot of kids here all the time. A lot of like preteen to early teens. So what do I do? When I'm watching them, I turn on Disney Plus, and my kids want to show their friends their favorite shows. And so they'll watch Percy Jackson 3 or 4 times with their various friends. They'll watch whatever Disney, insert Disney here. A lot of it's like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and that kind of stuff. They like the Marvel crap. So they'll watch it over and over again. I would like to know, because this many minutes watched. Well, how many times was that duplicate views from the same account? Because kids tend to watch stuff over and over and over again. We'll watch something once a year. My kids will watch it once every day, like easily. They'll turn on. I have one kid that's watched Investigators every week for like a year and a half. And there's only 2 seasons. It's literally impossible to watch it that many times. She must have seen every episode 6 or 7 times. Kids like to do that. I think that's where the minutes are coming from for some of these shows. And Star Wars doesn't have that audience, and we didn't like it. So you might have gotten a lot of hate views. We're definitely not watching it twice.
Hey, Brian, you've made a great point, and I want to toss a little extra onto that. The fact that the original Disney content for kids never charts ever, never, ever, I think points to the fact that kids aren't watching it, because you're exactly right. Why does Bluey sit so far up there?
Right.
Because families will watch it, kids will watch it, kids watch it over and over. I mean, the episodes are 8 minutes. So to achieve those kinds of statistics is insanity. But think about this, okay? So Young Jedi Adventures, that was supposed to be a big thing, right? Young Jedi Adventures, and they had all the little plushies. Those plushies are at Ollie's and they won't sell. Nobody's watching it, never charted, ever, never, ever. Think about Marvel Visions, never charted, never, ever, never. Think about all of these shows that Disney is making for kids. This Spider-Man, your friendly Spider-Man, super woke cartoon that just came out. It's never going to chart. And yet, the fact that it's kids' content means it should chart easier than anything else. They never chart. It's another point. It's another reason that shareholders, sorry, Brian, should be wary of Disney, perhaps.
Look, I got in a
parents
long
don't
time
trust
ago and I'm
Disney anymore.
stuck. So
Well, you know, Brian, I think half of those numbers are just YouTubers who are trying to, capitalize off of a terrible Star Wars show. But I want to throw this to Alex because Alex, last week we kind of talked about how Disney is trying to, prepare for the backlash against Hollywood by getting back to their core audience of like family, which they've alienated over the course of like the last 4 years. And you yourself have been singing the praises of Bluey and how it's basically an Australian show that was bought by Disney that's like their biggest ratings winner. So like when it comes to the fact that these are the two biggest shows on Disney Plus and I should say original shows, and they're barely getting by, what does that tell you about the Disney Plus's audience?
I think for the most part, people are just done with Disney. Like it's not the brand that it used to be. It's the only reason why I think most parents have Disney Plus is for the old stuff that we grew up on from the 80s and 90s. Those God? No. And
I have
only,
Disney Plus because I have a lot of kids and they have a huge catalog of good stuff.
Of good stuff, right? But it's all stuff that came out like 20 years ago.
Right.
Like I'm not watching any of the new stuff. I don't even know what new stuff is out there. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's just more.
It's remakes of the old stuff, Alex.
Yeah, plus honestly, in today's day and age, it would probably be cheaper for you to invest in your own home server, and you can get and collect all of the classic films, which you can buy for dirt cheap online and other means, and then that way you don't have to pay for any of these streaming services, including Disney Plus.
Yeah. By the way, he's completely right. I use Plex. You should use it too. Plex is free. You just have to have a lot of hard drive space.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you can get a terabyte hard drive. Will hold all the movies in the world. That's actually a really good idea. I might actually do that.
Dude, I do
really
that.
Thought about it.
Dude, I with me and some of the people that watch our show, we share our servers. Like I can give you my server so you can see my entire library. Like the great thing about Plex, you can actually share your library with your friends.
All that porno.
Yes, all those feet pics.
Man, it's Percy Jackson.
It's all Percy Jackson.
It's all Percy Jackson.
Yeah. It's just it's a Percy
Jackson porno.
Yeah, it's that
God,
now
children. They're children.
Impossible to find series of Willow, I should say.
Oh,
dude, that's I've been looking for.
Not like the kid.
I've been looking for Willow the series. It's like impossible to find.
Yep.
Crazy.
That's crazy.
It's not impossible to find our super chats, guys. We got Darth Maul's lower half for €2. No more beep bop boop. I'll miss it. Yeah, did you guys hear about the executive order that gets rid of pronouns and emails and bios from government employees?
Mm-hmm.
I guess you could say DEI got beep bop booped.
Yep, exactly. Also, Gina Carano did a update on her lawsuit. It's still going forward, so hopefully things are good on that front. And Darth Maul's lower half for €5. I'm getting excited about Star Wars Celebration in April, not because of Star Wars. You can still get tickets for Friday and Sunday. The guest list is short compared to 2023. Yes, imagine going to Star Wars Celebration and not celebrating Star Wars. That's pretty much what it's what it's there for nowadays. But guys, you know who else isn't celebrating very much anymore is Selena Gomez. She put out a very ill-timed video of her crying about her quote unquote people being deported.
The children.
Yes, it quickly went viral all across the internet. And what's interesting is that the backlash to this has been that she's lost over 800,000 Instagram followers. Now, one thing to note about Selena Gomez is that she has 422 million followers on Instagram.
I can't help but notice where you paused on the screen.
But basically, she's the most followed woman on that platform, and she may lose close to 1 million followers over in just the last 30 days because of her crying. And what was interesting about her video is that basically the timing of it is that they're going around deporting criminals, rapists, murderers, all these people who are here illegally who have been committing crimes. And she's out there trying to defend them, trying to keep them from being deported. She's crying. In fact, a lot of the mothers of women, American citizens who've been murdered and raped by illegal immigrants, did their own crying videos calling her out for like, where were these tears when my daughter was victimized, you know?
But
And
So brutal.
children.
yeah,
Let's
and
be
plus
real. She's crying because she had to find new help.
The
Well,
children.
I thought this was going to work the way it used to work.
But the whole thing
That was a
here
good
is like
joke.
like she's claiming that it's her people. She's not Mexican. She's American. She was born here. She grew up in a life of privilege. She was a Disney star very early on, Disney child star. She's never had to work a manual job in her life. And basically, she has now deleted the video. And she said that, or I should say, her representatives are saying that she's worried that it could alienate Republican fans of her beauty brand. That she was like so outspoken about this. And she also came out and said that crying made her look weak and she needs to be stronger for like her principles. So there's a lot of backpedaling for this this yet another example of a celebrity basically being poo-pooed on for like a really bad take. But Alex, I want to throw this to you to start with, because you sent me a video this morning of comedian Joey Diaz addressing this directly. I want to play the video for everyone on the panel and our chat, and then get your take on it, right?
The audio. Get that audio.
Karate.
I'm kind of happy not to hear it.
Let me translate it. The children.
All right, I
Karate
will.
is better than your kung fu. My kung
Try
fu
that again,
will
buddy.
Master your karate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna reshare, and I thought I turned on the audio for it. So let me,
As Cadence gets ready to do that, remember, folks, the fascinating thing about this escapade with Selena, not a single celebrity came to her aid that I'm aware of. Nobody. Silence. Crickets in Hollywood, which tells you that the backbones are gone. The principles no more. The marching orders were not given to go on defense.
All right, tell me if you guys can hear this.
I gotta wake up to Selena Gomez crying. What the is wrong with that little Mexican? Oh my God, these California people. Why are you crying? If you like the Mexicans so much, get on the bus. Tell Trump to pick you up. I'm over here sweating bullets. You don't see me walking the last couple of days. My last name is Diaz. They might make a mistake, and I'm calling you Collect from Colombia. The truth.
Selena Gomez faced criticism for crying on Instagram Live about.
That's enough. That's enough. That's the end of it.
You know, if he cursed less, that would be a much more shareable clip. But I could barely hear what he's saying because I got bleeped it out.
There's clips of him where it's not bleeped out. I don't know why that YouTuber bleeped all the stuff out, but it's much funnier when it's just.
That's why
it's just
neither
Diaz.
I nor Tom Connors never curse.
That's not true.
We all know Tom
I
Estes.
couldn't even come back with anything on that one. Like
Fact checkers say that's
I
not
was
true.
like a deer caught in headlights going.
Like, have you? I've been with Tom curses. A lot.
I'm sorry. Is that Fred Rogers down there in the bottom middle? Is that Fred Rogers? Hi, Fred.
Well, Alex, what's
Can
your
you
take
say
on
the
Joey
word-
Diaz's take on Selena Gomez?
I think he's echoing exactly what probably the majority of people are thinking. Like, what are you crying for? Are you that upset about criminals leaving the country? Like, go with them then. Yeah, I mean, I can't really say it any better than Joey Diaz did right there, and that was freaking funny as hell. So yeah, I'm just gonna say the same thing. Like, what is she crying for? She's got no reason to cry. It's just like this. Oh, she missed the memo where they were like, hey, it's not cool to be like super against Trump anymore. Don't do that. It's a bad business decision.
Yes. Speaking of which, Dubs, the big thing here is that she deleted the post because she was afraid it would alienate customers of her brand, of her beauty brand, who are in favor of deporting illegal criminals from the country. What does that say about her principles?
Can you say that ship has sailed, Miss Gomez?
And I was confused. I thought she was apologizing for Amelia Perez.
Here's the deal. Rasmussen put out a poll on this. It's like mid-60s, upper 60% of Americans are in full support of the deportations right now. Because they're deporting these awful, terrible, violent people that we've
Criminals.
Right, criminals.
Criminals.
And so the vast majority of Americans, like a super majority, are in favor of this. So when Selena did this, And probably some publicists said, hey, you got to cry. We're going to record it. It'll look good. It'll get you lots of buzz. It's going to be great. We'll go trending. And she did it. And the response was not the way that she hoped that it would be. We went into Bud Light territory. And so then she said, all right, how do we fix it? And the publicist said, okay, you got to be the victim. We got to victimize you quick. So then she came out and said, it's not okay to show empathy anymore. Oh, no. But actions with celebrities always speak louder than words. And what we've seen is they're running from this idea that she doesn't need to cry because she needs to be strong. Like, I'm sorry, Genie is out of the bottle. It's going to take you. That's like Will Smith saying that he needs to stop slapping people because he's going to be remembered poorly. Too late, my friend. Too late.
Fuck baby J, put a chicken in, make her gay.
Brian.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so like this is just a long line of celebrities doing very cringe videos. Like you have all the celebrities singing like,
Imagine.
Imagine during COVID, you had
Imagine there's no afterlife. Yeah. Your relatives are dead.
You had the Avengers, coming out down with democracy.
Down with
democracy. And now you have Selena Gomez. And a lot of people in the comments of that now deleted post were saying, like, if I was really that emotional and crying, the last thing I would do is take out my camera and record myself, feeling these emotions. And so
it's this
very
leftist thing, dude. Like, if you look at most of social media over the past couple of years, especially since 2016 when Trump got elected, like leftists, these hardcore leftist people, they love to record themselves just blubbering like idiots online for like weird sympathy points or something, or like, look how devastated I. It's so crazy.
You can see yourself crying.
Brian, let me read you this quote from the Yahoo News article. It basically says, Selena thought she was being authentic and helpful with her video, but in retrospect, she realizes that it could have been more powerful without the tears. The tears showed weakness, and that is not what she intended. She is very passionate after seeing critics calling for her to help by donating some of her millions to enrich the lives of immigrants in their home countries. She realized that she could never win. What's your take on that?
That's interesting. Yeah. You know what? If the people that are so passionate about taking care of illegal immigrants, a lot of them have a lot of money. So get down there and put some of that to use. The rest of us don't. And it shouldn't be our job to bear that cross. Now, there are immigrants that just want a better life. I get it. I understand. I would try to do the same thing. But there are also a lot of immigrants that are just straight up criminals, violent, drug dealers, drug addicts, bad hombres. So I think that Selena Gomez, when she gets on there and starts crying, it's because she is buying the hype that, like Brett said in the chat, that they're deporting babies and unicorns. And she doesn't understand that they're literally rounding up people with criminal records that were released from prison recently or jail. These are not good hombres. These are the bad hombres. And maybe they do get to the good hombres at some point. That's entirely possible. But they broke the law when they came in here. And while my heart goes out to people that just want a better life, we have to secure our borders, and you have to come in the right way, even if the right way is hard. That's the way. That's the name of the game. And I'm sorry you were born in that country. I'm sorry that you have that bad life. That's your cross to bear. You got to figure it out. I have my cross to bear. Matt has his cross to bear. It's no one's job to bear your cross for you. And the American people, who are also struggling in their own right, should not have to bear that cross. So what they're doing with the deportations is a good thing. We need to secure our borders. We need to deport criminals. I hope that we don't get to the point where the media is reporting on like ICE, ripping babies out of mothers' arms or crazy stuff like that. But ultimately, this is a good thing for the country. And I think Selena Gomez was just lied to. I think she's buying the lie, and she honestly believes that her people, which, by the way, you're completely right. She's a Disney star. She's maybe Mexican by heritage, but she's an American.
Yeah, her people are like Justin Timberlake.
Right, Justin Timberlake. Right.
I mean,
The thing is, though, she's probably buying the
We
line.
can deport him, right? Can we
She
deport him?
thinks that ICE is going into schools
Please?
and pulling kids out of classes and like
She can't even speak Spanish. She doesn't know Spanish.
dragging them to the border and kicking them over like they're footballs or something. It's not what's happening. What's happening is they're deporting criminals. So you're crying for criminals.
Scanning for Selena Gomez. Scanning for Selena Gomez.
You know, Tom, we talked a lot about in the show about the death of the celebrity and how like celebrities just don't have the cachet that they used to have, especially after this last election where you had so many celebrities
They
trying
got
to
plenty
use
of cash.
their cachet. Yeah. So you had this last election where a lot of celebrities tried to move the needle for Kamala Harris, and they came off as inauthentic and it fell flat. And I think that this is another example where you have Selena Gomez, who's not really like, you know, a great actress or anything like that, but she does have a huge, like, you know, social media following, which to Hollywood is oftentimes more important than actual star power nowadays. But the idea that she tried to basically like leverage her like fame and renown, and it just completely backfired on her, I think is just more evidence that celebrity culture is slowly dying in Hollywood. What's your take on that?
I mean, yeah, I mean, Selena arguably is probably one of the last that you could say is probably a well-known actress / star, whatever you want to call it. But that's just because she grew up in front of all of us on television. Now, that being said, yeah, I think we're at an impasse here. I think Hollywood has figured it out. I think the media is slowly coming around to figuring it out. The actors and some of the other activists and people that are just so bought into this religious aspect of the woke are never going to change. I feel like there may be some change here because I was thinking the Oscars were going to be one big, you know, final re-woke fest. But it's almost like they're trying to cancel the actress, and I don't know if we're going to get into this at all, before they even get to the ceremony. So, like, yeah. So, not going to get too deep into that, but, like, we're at this point now where it's almost like they're starting to wake up. The woke are waking up. And they're realizing that, yeah, we don't have any movie stars left. We destroyed the movie star. Because that's kind of what Hollywood was built on, is you had this idea that you had people that the masses would like to go see do stuff like John Wayne, Clint Eastwood, you know, even, you know, like Julia Roberts or whoever you want to throw in there, you know, all throughout our lifetime, the span of hundreds of years or 100 years of movies. And now we're at this point where name me one movie star that hasn't been around for more than 20 years now. Even she is one of those that you can say, yeah, she's been around for about 20 years. There's not many. Timothy Chalamet is probably one of the closest. Glenn Powell is getting there. Sydney Sweeney's kind of getting there, but we have yet to see them actually do anything box office wise to say, yeah, that person's a draw. I mean,
yeah, Sydney Sweeney's super popular, but she's not. You're not going to go. I don't know. I guess I shouldn't say that, but I guess I probably would. But you haven't seen too many movies where it's like, oh, that's a Sydney Sweeney movie.
Exactly.
I'm going to go watch.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would totally do that, though.
I'm going to put something out there and here, listen to me straight with this, okay? What about the combo of Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo? Because I think people want to see them on press tours more often because of how ridiculous they were.
Yeah, great TV
It was
show.
like watching Nosferatu and Lily Rose run around on the fucking press junkets. Are you serious?
Seriously, that was so creepy. They were like both like hypnotized or some weird.
You know,
so weird.
Creepy, I want to throw this to Odin because
I am the greatest actor of all times.
And then you had her just all up on there. Yes, you are, baby. Yes, you are. Ah.
Well, Odin, the timing of this is interesting because, you know, the movie that Selena Gomez is in, Emilia Perez, got nominated for 13 Oscars. There's a lot of controversy surrounding it. There's a lot of buzz surrounding it. Netflix is really putting a lot of money trying to push for it to win these Oscars. And we're going to get into this a little bit more in our next segment. But, you know, Selena Gomez kind of coming out and getting this bad publicity could negatively affect Emilia Perez's chances, despite all the, you know, virtue signaling on that stuff, in addition to the controversy that's already surrounding the movie. So what do you think about the timing of this? Do you think that Selena Gomez might have actually, like, you know, hurt the movie that she's starring in?
It's hard to say because I think that you look at the like limited box office information that we have for the international release of the movie. You also look at the streaming numbers, or at least the perceived streaming numbers for it. No one's seeing this movie. No one had even heard of this film before. So I actually think that she's actually probably getting more eyes on the film because of it versus anything else. There's that old adage of like, any type of publicity is good publicity. We know that obviously that's not always 100% true, but in this case, because so few people were actually watching this film and how much traction her video ended up getting, I think more people would be more likely to say, let me watch this train wreck tonight, because there are people that do that, right? They're like, hey, I've heard that this movie is terrible and that girl's in it. I want to see her in that train wreck. I want to see her do terrible once again. So you know what? She may have actually helped the numbers of this movie, if anything else.
Bad movie nights is a staple at Kadish's house. Like, let's go watch this terrible freaking movie. Get drunk and laugh at the ridiculousness of it all.
Yeah, you know what isn't terrible, guys, are members chats. We got one from Def Row, who's been a member for 23 months. That's almost
Def
2
Row.
years.
What's up, dude?
The DEI Oscar nominated Emilia Perez 13 times. When they go DEI, they go hard. Gomez worried that the gangs don't buy her makeup to cover the tats. That is true. I found it very interesting that her biggest concern was like, conservative people aren't going to buy my makeup anymore. Yeah, my brand.
Oh no, I damaged my brand.
Exactly. But guys, speaking of damaging brands, let's talk a little bit about Anthony Mackie and how
that segment was gold, bro.
Yeah. Captain Anti-America is in full effect right now. So for those of you guys who don't know, Anthony Mackie, who is the star of the upcoming Marvel film Captain America Brave New World, he originally played Falcon, and now he's been promoted to Captain America. He was out doing international press tours in the gear up for the movie, which is coming out, I believe, next week over the Valentine's Day weekend. And he said something that got him in a little bit of hot water. And I'm going to actually play this for you guys right now. Hopefully you can hear the volume. So
a lot of different things. And I don't think the term, America should be one of those representations. Like it's about a man who keeps his word, who has honor, dignity, and integrity. Someone.
So guys, America doesn't have honor and dignity and integrity. Captain America shouldn't be representative of America and all that jazz. So obviously fans and Americans and all that stuff didn't take too kindly to Anthony Mackie's word. In fact, he had to basically come out and apologize for it. And he released this statement. I believe it was on Instagram. It says, "Let me be clear about this. I'm a proud American, and taking on the shield of a hero like Cap is the honor of a lifetime. I have the utmost respect for those who serve and have served our country. Cap has universal characteristics that people all over the world can relate to. But those characteristics aren't directly relatable to America, right? So like you can't have America be a symbol for those things. You have to remove America from the equation." So Brian, I want to get your take on this. So why does Hollywood
hate America?
Well, has Mackie tanked his movie by suggesting that Captain America doesn't represent America? Because this movie's coming out, in a week or so. And this is the worst possible time to create a controversy like this. Do you think that this will actually tank the movie?
The movie was already tanked. You can't make a movie called Captain America without Captain America. Like, that's a whole other conversation. We've already talked about that, but no, this is not gonna. I don't think this is gonna affect the movie. I think the movie is already. If the movie is good, then the word of mouth will hit, and who knows? Maybe it is, and it'll get plenty. It'll get the views it needs. But more than likely, it's lackluster, and his comments ultimately are not going to matter. But it just shows how disconnected most of these celebrities are. Like, you're being do you not know you're being recorded right now? You're playing Captain America and you're being recorded, and you have no issue with saying with. I mean, come on, it's so tone deaf. I'll say it again: these studios need to put a clause in these actors, and these creatives' contracts that says, look, You only say approved stuff until your movie comes out. Like, stop going out there and shooting the studio in the foot with your stupid politics or dumb ideas. Which sucks is because I actually like Anthony Mackie a lot. I think he's a great actor. Actor. I think he's a great actor.
In today's world, very well he could be.
Who knows? Yeah,
2 days. Yeah.
No, but I think he's also an asshole. And if I was him and I was an asshole, and I'm like, look, I know I'm an asshole, I would limit my exposure to fans to keep my career going because he's a talented actor. Twisted Metal is one of my dark horse favorites for the last in the last 5 years. It's a great series. He was also in Altered Carbon, I think it was called. I think he's great, but he's obviously in his personal life a little bit of an asshole, and he needs to know that when he's being recorded, you can't say shit about America when you're playing Captain America, especially if you want to try to sell yourself to the American public as the title character of America. Jesus.
Well, Dubs, I want to ask you. So, let's just assume that Anthony Mackie's characterization of America does affect this movie. How will Brave New World's failure impact Marvel and Disney, do you think?
Well, first of all, he apologized in that message he put out. I think that it probably is the same person who wrote the Rachel Zegler apology. If I'm trying to make a good bet there. So I don't know that he's apologizing. I don't know that Rachel Zegler is apologizing. I think somebody comes in to clean up their mess, like somebody come in to clean up the kitty litter. Here's the deal with Anthony Mackie. They ran a puff piece on him in Esquire. They have run save the sinking ships kind of articles in the Hollywood Reporter. It is all hands on deck to try to save this thing. It's unsalvageable. And by the way, that paragraph's going to be at the very, very bottom. It's unsalvageable. It really is, because this entire movie, the reason it exists is to condemn the type of America that they thought was going to fade away. Like this whole thing about Red Hulk, and the Orange Man. It's true. It's true. All of it. And they've done reshoot after reshoot after reshoot. They have spent hundreds of millions of dollars to salvage this thing. But like a steak that went bad, it doesn't matter if you put it back in the freezer. It doesn't matter if you try to call it aged. It doesn't matter. It's spoiled. It's rotten. And so this needed to be redone top to bottom with a completely different concept. The idea that you're going to have this movie be the dawn of a new era of Captain America. No. And then on top of it, he's coming in there and acting like the backside of a burro. He's doing that every single day. When you read a puff piece, and he talks about this in the Esquire piece, he says that a 50-year-old woman and her child came 10 feet away from them while he was doing the interview with Esquire. And they walked 10 feet away from him, and the woman said that she had like they had some interaction at some point in New Orleans, and she said hi based on that. And then her kid said, I'm a huge fan. They walk away, and then Anthony Mackie says, that scared the blank out of me. And then they mock, like the author of the Esquire magazine article and Anthony Mackie mock the two fans. Let me tell you, if you want to ensure that people will stay out of the doors of the cinema, do that. Like everything that you could do to make sure that people don't go to see this, he's doing it. He is absolutely anathema to success. He's Rachel Zegler 2.0. But I think that might be too kind, because Zegler went silent. Zegler hasn't said a controversial thing in 2 months, which is, by the way, a record-breaking amount of time for her.
That's Mackie also pretty kind to Rachel Zegler, though, too, because she's not a great actress.
Yeah,
Weird.
She's a Broadway girl now.
She can sing.
Exactly. She'll do great on Broadway, and that's where
she can sing.
Where she'll stay.
Only people who don't know how to sing say that. Just saying.
No. She absolutely can sing.
She cannot sing. She can.
Dude, her entire origin started off on these shorts on like Instagram or whatever as singing, And no, she absolutely can sing.
She can.
Well, she doesn't sound like it in that Snow White trailer. I'm gonna tell you that right now.
I'm not saying that the recording that they did was good. I'm just saying she can actually sing.
Well,
watch the Hunger Games movie. She can sing.
Guys,
no. Watch her live recording singing without any of the extra audio modifications. She absolutely can sing.
Guys, to Pro's point, Anthony Mackie has been rated as like the second most rude celebrity in Hollywood right now. But what's interesting is that he recently told everyone, all the Marvel fans, to chill the F out. Where basically they're saying that Red Hulk is kind of like an allegory for Donald Trump, where you have the president in Brave New World who's secretly a monster who's going to like destroy the country, and Captain America has to save it. But Alex, being a big Harrison Ford fan, that Harrison Ford basically came out and said like, yeah, I'm basically playing Trump in this movie instead of Alex Ross. So what's your take on Brave New World's basically saying that the Red Hulk is the equivalent of the Orange Man bad?
It's just they filmed this a couple years ago when it was popular to say that, and they didn't take into account the ginormous support that Donald Trump would have in the 2024 election. And
they should have made
they should have. They're just eating their words at this point, if that's true. I didn't really realize that until just now. But
Alex, why does Hollywood keep hating on Trump, conservatives, and America? Why do they think that they still want to do it?
Because they want to control the culture. They've been in control of culture. What does it say? That politics is downstream of culture. So Disney, the executives of Hollywood have been in control of politics by virtue of controlling the culture for so long, and it's just now catching up to them that that's not true anymore. It's all just they're bought and paid for by certain political parties and certain political movements and lobbies and this and that, and whatever control they had is starting to loosen up a little bit.
You need to chill the blank out. That's what Alex Mackey says. Reporters go up to Anthony Mackie, and they say, Anthony.
Alex Mack.
Yeah, Alex Mackey. Mr. Mackey, is Red Hulk Trump? Chill the blank out. Like, that's not an answer. That's not a denial. That's not him saying, no, we would never do that. That we don't do modern politics. We don't do that. No. His response to is Red Hulk Donald Trump? His response is chill the blank out.
It's funny too, because like Winter Soldier, all these Captain America movies have all been about like internal corruption inside of politics and these evil people maneuvering this, behind the scenes, controlling the government and this and that. And it worked every single time, because corruption does absolutely happen in the government, and everybody knows that, and it's not like a controversial thing to say that. So you can base a movie like Captain America off of current politics. You just can't make this really specific dagger type like attack towards one person, because that's going to age super badly, and it already did. Like before the movie came out, this aged badly. So like if you want to make a general statement about how shitty the government is, which I think, and I'm not trying to play, I'm going to play devil's advocate, but I don't really, I'm just putting this out there. I don't necessarily believe it. But if you want to,
birds aren't real.
If you want to give Anthony Mackie a little bit of room on this with his statement that he said in that ridiculous freaking press tour, you could say, well, has America really stood up for those values over the last 20 years? Like, really? You think the U.S. government stands for integrity and dignity and all this stuff? Like, really? Go ahead and tell me that, and I'll point to about 7 different wars we didn't need to be in.
No, you're right. Yeah, the government doesn't, but the people still do. And Captain America is a symbol of the people, not the government.
Exactly.
But he was talking in front of a non-American audience, right? Into a European audience. So,
and a lot of Europeans don't like
Europeans hate Americans for the most part.
True.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like that's the other thing. I think this is being vastly overblown. Because
they
like
pretend to, Odin, they don't really. They pretend to hate Americans.
I think a lot of them are kind of like. But here's the other thing: even if they don't hate us, we would at least have to say they don't care about us. Right. And neither should they, right? We shouldn't care about what they do in their personal lives. They shouldn't worry about us.
They do either.
So basically, it's like him telling an audience in Europe, "Oh, like it's about America and America, America." They're gonna be like, okay, what's that supposed to mean? The wars that we're seeing on TV, what our liberal media is reporting to us, what America's supposed to be. So it's like, I'm sorry, like I actually understand why he would say something like that, because ultimately he's trying to say, how can I relate this to an audience? I want their money. And if I just say America, 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 that's not going to sell it for them.
Right.
Guys, I know the solution, though. Tell me what you think about this. This is Disney logic. You ready? Disney logic says the way we can save this thing is Jimmy Kimmel. Anthony Mackie and Jimmy Kimmel. It's going to happen. Let's do it. 60 minutes of interview. And crying. Lots of crying, Tom. We'll cry for the 30 minutes of it.
And I get what Odin's saying, but the problem is Mackie hid an apology on his Instagram, and it wasn't even really an apology, and it didn't even really address what he said. Because the problem you have here is that he is contrasting the two things in the way he's saying it, right? That's the problem we have here. He is saying that I don't think that Captain America represents America. I think he's all these things that he listed off. So he is separating the two, right? Yeah. Instead of saying, look, I think the best of America holds these values or something like that, which he could have easily clarified in his non-apology. He didn't. He doubled down on the fucking stupid. And then he goes out there and says the stupid shit like, oh, can we not make this about politics? It's like, motherfucker, your whole movie's about politics. Like, what the hell are you talking about? Sorry, I'm not trying to get pissy, but it's like, dude, like, you need to stop and quit putting your foot in your mouth at this point. Because as we pointed out at the start of this whole thing, this movie was already headed down, into a dark pit of abyss right next to the Marvels and Eternals. Mm-hmm. And the more he talks, the more the general public hears about this shit, which before they didn't care. Now they will. Tom, you already had an uphill battle because this movie was just a sequel to a TV show nobody saw.
Yeah, I want to ask you, Tom. So, like in the previous weeks, we've seen the government make a concerted effort to purge affirmative action, DEI, stuff like that from government. A lot of private businesses are doing that right now, and Anthony Mackie and Hollywood have all been very vocal in about, like, we have to have representation on screen and all this other stuff. At what point do you think Marvel will realize that DEI doesn't work in comic books or movies and make a course correction?
I think this is part of the course correction. I think we're starting to see it. We recently did a video where Bob Iger was hobnobbing with Trump. So was Jeff Bezos and a few other bigwigs. I think that's kind of where Rocha freaked out this week, because he kind of knows the same things that we've been reporting, and that is that, they're starting to realize in Hollywood this woke shit doesn't work, right? And Disney is ground zero for all this stuff, or however you want to put it, in the sense that they are, and this movie is, and we've been hearing it for a while, and Pro can probably get into this a little bit about how they knew this movie was going to be a stinker. They're upset because they got to release it because it's in the can, it's contractually obligated. They've got all these things that are attached to it. And then you have the Thunderbolts coming up, which sadly, from what we're hearing through most of the tests, is actually not that bad. They're hoping they can, it won't matter because they got to weather this storm. Then they got to get to that and all this other business. And then right now in Marvel's, Feige is one of the few people that has actually come out and admitted that they have to right the ship, that they have gone wrong and things need to be fixed. The problem they have now is they have this, they have Ironheart, they have how many other things that are still in the can they have to put out. We've got to get through the Thunderbolts and whatever they're doing with Fantastic Four to get to the next phase. And it all looks like a desperation move.
Tom, you're forgetting the salvation of the of Marvel, the MCU, and Disney Plus. Wonder Man.
Oh, now if you'd have said Daredevil, I'd have took you seriously.
Wonder Man. I need one of those Echo things you have. Can you send one of those over to my place? Thank you.
Wonder Man.
Darn, you've never used that before. That was more impressive. That is Echo 2.0. Well played.
Yes, well played, Tom. Odin, I want to ask you. We've talked about we've talked about the budget for Captain America: Brave New World in this podcast multiple times, and I believe you said that just to break even, based off of what we know how much it costs with reshoots and marketing and stuff like that, just to break even, this thing's got to hit $1 billion. Do you think that Anthony Mackie's apology will fix this situation and make it so that the movie could recover, or is it too late for that?
I think that neither the initial comment nor the apology will have that much bearing on anything dealing with the financials of this movie. We have a problem where we sometimes get caught in our bubbles. If we think that most regular everyday people were like talking about, did you see what Anthony Mackie said in that press tour in Europe,
but we're actually
no
getting
one
that now,
cares.
Odin.
Or if you have the people who say, oh my gosh, like, did you hear he posted on Instagram an apology and it was like kind of like not really an apology? No one in the actual like normie world really even cares about that nonsense. So the movie was already set to fail because of, again, massive reshoots, massive spending, and it's also, as Tom has mentioned correctly, it is a continuation of a show that nobody watched. That is why the film is going to be a failure. It's not really anything to do with any of this nonsense of what, again, I think is very much being blown out of proportion, because it's one thing if you're mad that he didn't say something in direct defense of America. I think that's a legitimate criticism. But to say I'm mad at him because he said something that was misconstrued and it was something that should have said something else, that's a much more complicated matter versus, again, he said something to a European audience trying to connect with them, a story that he's trying to desperately sell to them because he knows his film needs to make $1 billion to break even, and the only audience that's going to bring the film to that amount is the internationals. And this speaks more to the problem of modern Hollywood. They care more about international audiences, international sales, than they do about their own domestic audiences, which is why they've seen dramatic dips in the domestic audiences, where they have seen sometimes increases in the internationals, but even then are losing them too. So again, this is not going to have really any impact whatsoever, but normies, I don't think have heard about either one of these situations.
I agree with you with the first part, Odin, but I will disagree on the normies part, because I've had a couple people, including people in my own walking life, as I call it, non-YouTube life, that have brought this up to me or asked me about this, that are not the superhero / movie nerd people. So I do think this has hit the mainstream.
I can also say my wife, who also is a fan of these films in a general sense, has not said a single thing about this one. So again, I think we could all easily have someone that we can verify what we think is actually happening. I'm not saying it's not reached anybody, but I think that, again, is it going to make that much of a difference one way or the other? No.
Well, guys, what I do think has made a bit of a difference is the fact that Oscars has egg on its face, because their chosen trans celebrity that they've been pumping up has basically turned out to be extremely based, and people aren't liking her anymore. So for those of you out there who've been living under a rock, there's this movie called Emilia Perez, and it's about a drug kingpin cartel leader who goes through gender transitioning surgery to become a woman in order to get out of the drug life and basically not be assassinated. And it got 13 Oscar nominations?
13, which is the most for any foreign language film, and is just like 1 or 2 away from the most ever.
Greatest musical ever. Greatest musical ever.
Emilia Perez is categorized as a crime comedy foreign language musical. That is what it is categorized.
It's a French
as.
movie about a Colombian drug lord who turned into a woman to go into hiding, basically. Yes.
Yeah. And the lead titular line, Emilia Perez, is played by an actual trans actress named Carla Sofia Gascon. And this is someone who's had the surgery. They've had the twigs and berries chopped off. They've gone through everything to basically become a woman. And this is also an actor who was recently in this movie called The Conclave.
Cutting your dick off does not make you a woman.
Also,
but,
allegedly, we have to take his word for it.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Exactly.
So anyway, Carla Sofia Gascon got nominated as Best Actress for this year's Oscars. And so basically you have a biological man who is now competing with biological women for the movie industry's highest honors. And there was you could tell that there was a press pool lined up to support this actress and everything she stands for and all this stuff. But then something funny kind of happened. And it was that there was a journalist who uncovered past tweets that has painted this trans actress as Islamophobic, racist, and just a variety of nasty things that Hollywood left does not like. And it seems almost like a targeted character assassination bit. But it's funny because basically this actress, she lives in Spain, and she's constantly running into examples of Muslim immigrants who, make women hide their faces and just aren't big on women's rights. And so she tweeted a lot about the outrage of seeing these Muslim immigrants. She also is big on like the George Floyd thing, where she tweeted a lot about that and how it was an injustice, not the way that liberals like to categorize it. But it's very interesting that basically she's had to delete every single tweet that she's ever made because she's pretty based. Like she doesn't, kind of like conform to like leftist liberal policies. And because of this, people are worried that it's putting the awards potential for Emilia Perez in danger because there might be some backlash amongst the liberal elite who vote for the Oscars. So Odin, I want to start with you and get your take on this. Do you think that, I know that you just said nobody's paying attention to Anthony Mackie, but do you think that there are people paying attention to this controversy?
Again, in a similar vein, I think that we, in our space definitely are. And because it is much a bigger part of the culture with the president of the United States signing executive orders, and there's a lot of people that are fans of his that are following it, I do think that it has a little bit more, I think a lot more people know about this than they do about the whole Anthony Mackie thing. I think that this is getting a lot more attention, not to mention, of course, the Oscars, not that they have a lot of eyeballs on them anyway. I think that Trump has been kind of, I think that they should probably thank Trump in their acceptance speeches of saying, thank you for helping us get actually, some attention this year for talking about this particular issue. But the bigger issue that I have is that you keep referring to this guy as her and she, because this guy is a dude. No matter what he does to his body, he cannot change that biological fact. And I think that if the person who uncovered this stuff about him was actually being honest, the breaking story would be, oh, it turns out trans person still is a man.
That's one way of looking at it.
It's a fact.
Brian, I want to read you a tweet that got a lot of attention from this actress. And it's about George Floyd. And it basically says, I really think very few people ever cared about George Floyd, a drug-addicted swindler, but his death was served to once again demonstrate that there are people who will still consider Black people to be monkeys without rights and consider policemen to be assassins. They're all wrong. And a lot of people are pointing at this as an example of the actress being racist, and they are up in arms about it. I don't think it was meant to say that they're all wrong about them not being monkeys. I think it was that, that it's about victimhood here. But they're certainly framing this as evidence that this performer is definitely a hardcore anti-Black racist person. What's your take on that?
I mean, he sounds like he's pretty reasonable, because that's a pretty reasonable take. I don't know. I don't know how someone that can think that clearly can also, do the trans thing.
Chop their dick off.
Chop their dick off. Yeah, I'm trying to be like as politically correct as possible. But like, I don't know how you think.
Politically correct?
How can you think that clearly, but also have the chemical imbalance that makes you think you're a woman? I don't understand it. But yeah, he sounds totally based, because that is a based, logical, reasonable take on the whole situation. And if that wasn't coming from someone who is clearly has a brain disorder, I would probably tend to agree with him. Actually, it's scaring me a little bit that I agree with someone that has a brain disorder. That's all I'm saying.
I don't know. Can you reread that one more time? Because it didn't quite sound like. That's the thing. It is very twisted in how it's written. I'm still.
Well, it is translated from Spanish. So it basically says, I really think that very few people ever cared about George Floyd, a drug addict swindler, but his death has served to once again demonstrate that there are people who still consider Black people to be monkeys without rights and consider policemen to be assassins. They're all wrong.
So the people who think that about Black people and police officers are wrong. That's what the statement is saying.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's kind of more of a down the middle, because the rest of their statements are pretty fucking wackadoo. Like motherfuckers like, Hitler might have been right. That's what they're saying, not me.
Can I just translate for you?
Just to be clear, that is his opinion, not Tom.
Exactly. Yes. I just want to be clear on this. Yes.
Kanye just entered the live stream.
That's about to get clipped hard.
Real quick, Pro. I'll let you clarify that in a second, but I want to ask you. So, in addition to all this Islamophobic and reportedly racist comments. This performer actually had a lot of criticism for the quote unquote woke Oscars, where they tweeted, more and more the Oscars are looking like a ceremony for independent and protest films. I didn't know if I was watching an Afro-Korean festival, a Black Lives Matter demonstration, or the 8M. Apart from that, an ugly, ugly gala. So she's even criticizing the institution that is now trying to prop her up and celebrate her. What's your take on this?
My take on this is that Hollywood thought they had another Dylan Mulvaney, and they accidentally picked up a Caitlyn Jenner. And now they're all they're furious about it, and they've Bud Lighted the Oscars over this. They've Bud Lighted awards ceremonies over this. Poor Cynthia Erivo went as cuckoo as you can do, and it still wasn't enough. Imagine being Cynthia Erivo, and a balloon at this point is your biggest enemy. It might carry you and Ariana away. Nobody can tell what it is you're up to, and yet still you're not woke enough. And they brought in a Caitlyn Jenner 2.0 rather than a Dylan Mulvaney. It is a nightmare for the Oscars, and they deserve every single second of it. I can't wait to watch it. I don't think the average person knows this is happening yet, but I can't wait in case it all explodes on them the night of, because then it will be all people can talk about the next day, and it will not be because we're all stunned by the stunning and brave celebrities of Hollywood, Hollyweird, but rather it will be because we're looking at this like Selena all over again. The children.
Yeah. Alex.
Yes.
One of the more base things that this performer said is that they said, I don't like social media teams. And basically they're blaming social media teams for creating all this controversy and buzz leading into award season and stuff like that, creating rivalries and conflicts where there are none naturally. And, we've seen how Hollywood uses social media teams for basically bad stuff, especially like you have Zack Snyder, who astroturfed his way in with fake social media posts in order to get, the Snyder Cut and stuff like that.
Hashtag release the Snyder Cut was all fake, right?
Yeah, it was all fake. It was from a media firm that had lots of Twitter bots that created the perception that people out there wanted it.
That's hilarious.
But what's your take on this? Because again, this actor seems pretty based to me, calling out all of Hollywood's bad behavior.
I doubt it. It's selective. I doubt it, honestly. I mean, maybe a couple things. The broken clock's right twice a day, kind of a thing. You know what I mean? Maybe they have a few opinions that line up with quote unquote based or Republican values or right wing value, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't really matter. But I think it's probably just a limited amount of things. You start breaking into this person's character, and you're gonna find out the truth about it. And I just doubt it. I think it's probably just a very isolated, a couple of opinions about certain very particular things.
Well, Tom, the journalist who uncovered these tweets is very much a hardcore Islamist, shall we say. And the big thing that she noticed was that this actor was very critical about Islam, particularly in Spain, where they live. And so this seems to have kind of like bubbled up into a real hit piece to try to take down this performer because of their views about Islam more than anything else. Do you think that this is being kind of like manufactured to embarrass the Oscars and take down this actor before they can gain any real traction?
I mean, it could just be from this one individual doing this, but it seems like this individual had a problem with the Oscars until they were nominated for one. And now they're trying to backtrack. They're taking down their Twitter. They're dealing with all this nonsense. Look, it could be that. It could be a combination of a few things. And I had posited the idea that just maybe, because initially my thought was, this is going to be one of the wokest Oscars ever, and we're going to see the last or the final as I've been calling it, televised on the Oscars, because they are so disconnected from America right now that they went out of their way to nominate a movie that even the wokest of woke in Hollywood are going, I'm glad to see you guys nominate a trans actor for actress, but not sure this is the right movie for that. Because, I mean, look, it's made, like I was joking in the beginning, but it's true. It's a French film about a drug cartel leader, right? And let's just be clear about this. This person is not a good person, but this movie is basically glorifying them. So you have all sorts of politics going into this thing on top of the trans thing. And to them, I could see them going, oh, this is perfectly timed. We have a movie that has a trans person about somebody from a place that people are being deported to. And so we can sit up there and we can virtue signal all night long on top of the fires and blame global warming so they can have a trifecta all night of going after Trump endlessly. But what has happened? He won in the landslide. There's been a shift in every pretty much area otherwise, right? DEI programs are being shut down almost all across the board. And all of a sudden you're stuck with this situation where you have a movie that is kind of an embarrassment. Because let's be real. Let's be real honest about this. If this was any other year other than the last few years, this movie would have been nominated and won all the Razzie Awards for how fucking cringe it is. Because it completely misses the mark. It almost reminds me of The Help, because it was like when Hollywood thought they were getting ahead of the curve, thinking, look, we're virtue signaling and look how good we are. It's like, you do realize how much The Help is just basically white guilt the movie, right? Like, this movie is just wretched, really, when it boils down to it. If you rewatch it now, it is cringe as fuck, I bet. I haven't watched it in years. But that's what it kind of feels like, again, is they're standing on this as a virtue signal. And now I think they've realized that the tides have changed, and there's only one way of getting out of this, because you can't leave the person nominated and not let them win now, right? So what's the only other way you can get out of this? Have them disqualified, so then you can take the burden off of your shoulders. So then no longer is it a problem. She's disqualified. The movie can somehow be disqualified or disregarded then, because the big deal here from day one, what has been the headlines? Amelia Perez nominated for 13 Oscars, more Oscars than any other foreign language film ever in history, because I got to add that little asterisk there. And the big news has been first trans actress nominated for Best Actress. And I'm sitting here going, does that mean Linda Hunt has to give her Best Actress award back for playing a dude now? Because none of this makes any friggin' sense. Because these are the same people who a couple years ago were trying to argue, maybe we should just take the sexes out of the awards and just have the best award for acting, period. And I'm like, okay, let's open that can of worms. Why don't we? So hopefully this closes that can of worms this year, and they finally realize how stupid this is through using this, whatever. This is Hollywood's typical bullcrap, right? They never actually address or attack the actual problem. They dance around it and try and pass the buck, right? Like much like Vince Vaughn's thing that he was talking about on Hot Ones, where he said that's the problem with producers nowadays, and that's why they hide behind these IPs, because when it's all said and done and everything fails, they can say, well, you can't blame me because I used IP and I did this. It's everybody else's fault. And I think that might be part of this, though, Matt, you could be right. This could just be a direct attack from that individual over those specific comments. But there's more than enough comments here and other things that this person has said and attacked the Oscars and other individuals, I guess, which is actually a big no-no for Oscar rules. I don't know if you're aware of that or know anything about that, but yeah, that might be what they hang this whole thing on, is what I'm thinking.
Well, instead of opening a can of worms, I want to open a can of super chats with you made you say butts for $5. OMB dropping straight basic biological facts, and I'm for it. This dude jumped on the lefty train and wanted to be acknowledged for cutting up his body. Yes, indeed. Can always rely on Odin to spit straight basic facts, because
no, and Odin's right. Who was talking about this actor before that, right?
Yep. And
this
also
person
too,
this person is going to be shunned harder than Trey Parker and Matt Stone. A dude in a dress nobody wants to talk to, and the big winner here is Cynthia Erivo. Go ahead, Odin.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, because again, we cannot cede territory in regards to language. Because as soon as that it says any of that territory is ceded, they win. And so they are trying to turn reality on its head and make this a thing. And I refuse to allow them to do that, because God created man, male and female. That is it. There is no other. And therefore, this guy who has a mental illness, and I hope and pray he gets the help that he clearly needs, probably for a lot of other things going on in his life, he is still a man no matter what he does.
Boys have penises, girls have vagina.
Exactly.
You got it. Girls, we got the mum for $4.99.
You big
If it wasn't for some CCs on this panel, I wouldn't know any about this controversy. I stay off social media just because it's a headache. Any awards is dead. That's not true, the mum, because the Raven Awards
are
alive and well. Odin, you want to tell everyone about the Raven Awards?
Yeah, Raven Awards this is the 7th annual Raven Awards. It's my little award show that I do on my channel, and it's just a lot of fun. It's kind of like a mixture of Oscars and Razzies mixed together. So there's best of, worst of categories. We've got fun titles and names. And yeah, the ballot is currently live, and thank you very much for posting it in the chat. It's in the pinned chat right now. So submit your ballot for the best and worst of film in 2024.
All right, guys. So Tom mentioned Hot Ones a little bit, but I want to bring up another Hot Ones clip, this time with Matt Damon. And this is about DVDs and physical media and how the death of DVDs has really affected Hollywood. And this is something that's like super interesting to me because we're all big fans of physical media here on Salty Saturdays. And the fact that physical media is being slowly phased out of Hollywood is kind of worrisome. I want to show you guys this this clip from the Hot Ones where basically Damon lays out what's going on with the DVD market.
The viewers can relate to is sitting on the couch on a Friday night, going through the streaming services, cycling through the movies and thinking to themselves, they're not making movies for me anymore. As somebody who's been intimately involved in movie making for 30 years, what are the macro Hollywood conditions behind that sentiment?
Well, so what happened was the DVD was a huge part of our business, of our revenue stream. And technology has just made that obsolete. And so the movies that we used to make, you could afford to not make all of your money when it played in the theater because you knew you had the DVD coming behind the release. And 6 months later, you'd get a whole nother chunk. It would be like reopening the movie almost. And when that went away, that changed the type of movies that we could make. I did this movie Behind the Candelabra, and I talked to a studio executive who explained it was a $25 million movie. I would have to put that much into print and advertising, right, to market it, what we call P&A. So I'd have to put that in P&A. So now I'm in $50 million. I have to split everything I get with the exhibitor, right, the people who own the movie theaters. So I would have to make $100 million before I got into profit. And the idea of making $100 million on a story about like this love affair between these two people, yeah, I love everyone in the movie, but that's suddenly a massive gamble in a way that it wasn't in the 1990s when they were making all those kind of movies, the kind of movies that I loved and the kind of movies that were my bread and butter.
So guys, he basically breaks it down like this. Because DVDs are no longer a thing, there's less money on the back end to take risks on lower budget movies because movies cost a lot of money to market, and then they're not getting 100% of the revenue from theaters and all that stuff. So Tom Connors Jr., I know that this is a very passionate subject for you. What's your take on the death of DVDs?
Well, I really, it's a shot to my heart to hear you say that there is a death to DVDs, because I even wonder what's bringing that on, because the only death I see is the retail market not carrying them. But there's actually been a bit of a slight uptick in sales because in the last year or so, people have realized that, guess what? You don't own anything that's on streaming. And the thing that people run into most of all, and they hate, is when they're like, oh, you know what? I want to watch this movie. I haven't seen, Gemini Man in a few years. So they'll jump on, and I just looked over and grabbed a title. That's why I said that. They'll go and try and find it on Netflix. It's not there. They go try and find it on Amazon. It's there, but they have to buy it. They run into this issue. So they're like, you know what? It'd be so much easier if I just had the movie on my shelf. And the other part of what Matt's talking about is a movie like Rounders. I'll use one of his movies as a great example. Have you all heard of this movie? It's a brilliant fucking film.
Great movie. Love
Matt
it.
Damon, not Willem Dafoe, but John Malkovich. I don't know why I said Willem Dafoe. And of course, what's his face? His name's right here, and I can't even. Edward Norton. I don't know why I couldn't even remember.
You having a stroke, Tom?
I'm having a small stroke, but anyway, yes, I am. I'm having a mini stroke at the moment. So this movie came out back in 1998. It cost just over $12 million to make, and it only managed to make about $12 million at the box, or $22 million at the box office. But it was not a flop. Why? Because the DVD and video sales, as Damon was talking about, paid for the movie after the fact. It almost broke even at the theaters and then made plenty of money on video streaming, or not streaming then, it would have been video on demand, HBO, wherever else it went after that, and then eventually television. And by the end of the day, Matt Damon probably got a nice few residual checks off this movie when it was all said and done. Now you can't make a movie like Rounders anymore, right? You can't do that and market it. That's what he's talking about. So what the studios are doing, and this also goes back to the Vince Vaughn thing I was talking about too, is they're relying too much on IPs, right? Comic book movies, Harry Potters, you name it, Twilights, whatever, something that's a known IP that's been in existence and known for a while, instead of trying to create new IP. Because again, I always ask people, well, tell me the last new IP we've had. The closest that anybody can come up with is usually John Wick, and that's already over a decade old. So that's the problem they're having. So like on that behalf, that's what he's talking about. And yeah, it is a big problem, and they need to embrace that. And really, I don't know why the mid-level movie went away, and I'm sure Odin has a lot to say about it too. But yeah, it's a sad state of affairs, and the market has really just been basically dwarfed because Walmart's aren't carrying them really anymore. Best Buy's quit carrying them. Target's quit carrying them. Barnes and Nobles is one of the few places you can get discs now. Otherwise, I tell people, check out, your Goodwills, your pawn shops, your resale shops. That's a good place to get started if you want to start a new collection. Make a list of your top favorite films and try to build from there. That's what I tell people to do. But yeah, otherwise at this moment in time, I can't believe Hollywood is really not embracing it more, although most of the major studios still do, right? Like Disney kind of admitted they have to get behind it again by not saying, oh, we're going to get behind it, but what they did is they turned over all of their distribution to Sony. So that was their way of upticking output, but not admitting defeat by when they had pulled back on Blu-ray and DVD, which Odin, I'm sure, can get into that if he wants to.
And I want to throw this to Odin, because Odin, like Tom mentioned, studios have kind of reeled back from physical media. We don't have Blockbusters anymore. We don't have movie rental stores anymore. It's hard to find DVDs in the big box retailers. And, some people will argue it's like, oh, well, the rental market just shifted to streaming because you can go on Amazon and rent a movie on there instead. The only difference is you don't actually own these movies anymore, even if you buy them digitally on Amazon.
I bought movies that were removed and I just lost access to them.
Yeah. So Odin, what's your take on basically Matt Damon saying that the reason that we're not getting any type of experimentation or small budget or mid-budget movies anymore is because we no longer have this additional distribution network?
I think there's a lot to it because it's not making, these specific movies you're mentioning are not making money at the box office. This is something that I've really noticed, and anyone who follows my charting that I do always, some of them actually do notice this, and those that do are actually more insightful than they even realize. They say, but almost everything in your chart is in the red. Oh my gosh, every movie is somehow in the red. I'm like, yeah, that's the problem, because only the really big movies with massive budgets are consistently making money. But same token, those same films that are making a lot of money are also making, or rather losing, a lot of money in many cases as well. And so it's a very tough time for the box office because COVID really did change the way that we go to the theater. It used to be that you would be more willing to go to a film that you had not heard about, that maybe you just saw one poster for, because one, you were more willing to do this. You were already in the routine of going to the theater every single week, but also just as important, if not more so, and all of us know about the impact that this has had over the last 4 years especially, we don't have as much expendable income as we once did, especially prior to COVID. And so because of that, now for people who either wanted to get back into the movie-going routines, have now been met with higher ticket prices than they were used to before they stopped going before COVID, higher popcorn prices, everything increasing in prices. Now the theaters are trying to make, trying to stay alive as well by having certain seats be more expensive. Some people just don't like the fact that now they have to reserve their seat. I think there's a benefit to it, but I could see why people would say, I'd rather buy my ticket, get whatever seat I want, show up early and get the prime seat. Now you have to actually pay if you want to sit in a certain area in some of these locations. So I just think that there's a fight. There's a battle going on, both in the actual movie-going industry and then also in the physical media sales, because this is, I think, a battle that is hopefully going to be lost by the studios, because they are now trying to get back, as was just mentioned, into the physical media game. And that means that they are trying to really, unfortunately, completely price gouge collectors, because you have, especially I think it's Disney is right now really doing it. They're spending they're charging $60, I think, for some of these 4K steelbooks.
Yes.
Which is insane. Anyone who's been following the space knows for a long time that a typical 4K steelbook was typically for the last several years in $30 to $40 range, right? When it first came out. and then they would be discounted, early out or not too long for their release. And so when Disney's doing that for their mainstream movies, that's a big problem. Like, it's one thing where, because I was holding this up earlier, you have some companies that are actually starting to do things a little bit differently. So Lionsgate has their Lionsgate Select series. So this is the Conversation box set, which is
Lionsgate
brilliant.
Direct or whatever it's called.
Yeah, but it's also more expensive. But the difference is that you can't just buy it on Amazon. You have to go to their site directly. There's only a certain number, so it actually is limited. Whereas Disney, as this massive corporation, is taking films that they plan on selling a lot of copies for, plan on making a lot of copies for, but they're charging you up the wazoo for it. And so hopefully that they lose that battle, and fans and collectors can actually win. And that's why I've been holding off on buying some films that I actually genuinely want to get, but I refuse to pay that kind of premium for a lot of it.
Well, I'm in two minds on that, because I just want to say, like, the thing is with the problem with their price gouging is I just hope the rest of the industry doesn't follow in suit.
Yes.
Right? Because we already have Shout Factory and a few other companies that do price gouge, in my opinion. And the problem with that is that the other side of that is honestly, with inflation and the way things are, the price probably would probably be about $60 for a normal Blu-ray 4K right now if we were going with actual inflation. But since they fell off over the years, the price never raised, so they never grew with inflation. So we're actually kind of fortunate. But that being said, you're 100% right on everything you're saying. Is they're starting to slowly realize, oh crap, we dumped this entire revenue stream, and it was a very lucrative revenue stream at one time, and they misinterpreted the way the world worked when it came to because real quick, the reason DVD was so impactful, and people don't realize this, is that DVD came on the scene right after 9/11 came out or happened. This is when a lot of DVD movies started coming out, and people were staying home instead of going on vacation. So it was very similar to COVID in that respect. So instead of going to movies and going out and doing things in public and to ball games and stuff, they stayed home. They bought a home theater system and bought a bunch of DVDs. So the theaters fell off a bit, but the studios noticed a big revenue jump in DVDs. So they've been trying to replace DVD ever since. That's what they tried to do with Blu-ray, and they fucked it up. That's what they tried to do with 4K UHD, and they ain't been able to really make it stick because people don't understand. They have not done a good job of educating the public. When I have plenty of people ask me, "Oh, can I don't want to get a new DVD or Blu-ray player because it won't play my old DVDs." Yeah. They are serious, right? Like, that is a problem when you have an uneducated general public when it comes to this stuff. And then, like he said, the price gouging and everything else that goes into it, it's a huge mess. So they thought during COVID they could pull the same thing after 9/11 and get people into streaming. It didn't effing work. Why? Because people are not going to sit there and have 10 different streaming services. And Andre was right about this. It was the world's biggest, dumbest format war, because you had every single studio going, instead of going, you know what, we should use Netflix as a central hub and benefit from that. No. They decided we're all going to have our own. And that was basically like everybody going, we're going to have beta, we're going to have VHS, we're going to have this, Umatic, we're going to have all different formats for every studio. Can you imagine what that had been like back in the day? That's exactly what happened to us. Mm-hmm. And then they're wondering why we didn't adapt to that. I'm sorry, I just had to rage a bit.
Yeah, I want to throw this to Pro. Pro, studios, especially Disney, seem to be reeling from this, lack of revenue stream. Do you think that there's any road where studios could, I don't know, reclaim this revenue stream or find a way to replace it?
Well, that's hard to do. When you eviscerate your market, it's really hard to get people to go back. So here's what happened. They had this secondary market where after the release of the box office, then they had not only the DVD/VHS/Blu-ray, but then 6 months later, they put out the special edition, right? Or the collector's edition or whatever. And so you had these multiple opportunities to relaunch the item and make more money off of it. And when streaming came along, they threw everything they had at streaming. And I think in large part because they also thought that movie theaters were going to go under. And I think there was some effort to either make movie theaters go under or to take control of them in such a way that they would essentially become places to host blockbusters. Then two things happen as a result of this. Because they threw everything at streaming, they sacrificed all of those redundant revenue streams, right? So your secondary releases, which, by the way, to give you some idea of how important this was, the Austin Powers original movie, Man of Mystery, right? International Man of Mystery. Mike Myers would have not had a hit. It didn't win at the box office. Austin Powers took off as a VHS DVD. And then that resulted in having a trilogy at the box office. And then when the second one came out, The Spy Who Shagged Me, of course, it did phenomenally well for a comedy at the box office because it had had an opportunity in that secondary revenue stream, which was the VHS DVD. Okay, so they sacrificed all of that redundancy money, and simultaneous, they put all their eggs in the basket of a system where it's passive revenue. So like you can't really say, oh, well, I have this number of subscribers and it's because of this movie. There's no direct correlation. And then finally, this was all supposed to still work though, because superhero films and big IP films like Tom was referencing, they're supposed to subsidize it. So even though your lower level movies can basically no longer work anymore, right? It can all be subsidized. And it can be subsidized by the big movies like the MCU films and the DC films and the Harry Potter films, etc. And the problem there is what they did is they sacrificed those too, but those were sacrificed ideologically because they had to wokeify them. And so they've collapsed both sides of this. And I would say there's a third leg too that was collapsed as, this is true. I mean, it's a full reckoning in Hollywood. The third leg of the table that was collapsed was the power of the movie star, right? The celebrity economy. Because as we did these things, it and social media, it brought the celebrities closer to the consumer. But that wasn't necessarily good because it turns out that some of the celebrities are not the kind of people that you would want to have closer to you. And it turns out that the idea of a movie star, the reason we call them movie stars is because stars are far away and you look at them, right? From a great distance. You bring them close to you and all the magic is gone. And that's what's happened on all three prongs.
Dude, you're reminding me of a film I really like. I don't know if anyone else, The Majestic. Which is like one of my favorite films, like more modern films. And in it, you have this character where he's talking about his love of movies. And he says, up there, that was Olympus. They were gods to us. And what did they do? They came down to us just for an hour or two to have a moment with us, right? And that's what it used to be, right? They used to be viewed in that way. But yeah, you're right. Social media made it so that it's like, oh, they're just like us. And in fact, some of them are just really, really bad people.
Right. Well, I want to. This is. We all know this would have been true no matter what the era, right? You don't need Maureen O'Hara telling you her quick takes on or her hot takes on politics. You don't need John Wayne posting a picture of what he had for breakfast. Like it's disillusioning of what we once had.
I don't even know that Buster Keaton is a animal rights activist.
Yeah, I want to throw this to Alex because Alex, it used to be that movie would come out in the theaters 6 months later, it would come out on home video, DVD. There was like this whole like long process that movies would go through to kind of cycle through the different avenues of distribution. Nowadays, 3 weeks after a movie's in theaters, it's available on streaming. So the turnaround time is like, super short. There's no more anticipation. People can say, well, I'm not going to go see it in theaters. I'm just going to wait for it to come out in streaming in a few weeks, especially like movies that bomb in theaters. But ironically enough, this strategy has negatively affected box office receipts. So do you think that that streaming has just been so disruptive for the industry that nobody really stopped to use one of the lines from Jurassic Park? You were so obsessed with that whether or not you could do it, you didn't think of whether or not you should do it.
Yeah. I think technology is always going to push things forward, and you can't go backwards after that. So now that streaming is out, like it's going to be. I don't think that the physical media thing is going to have. It's going to become like people who collect vinyl records. It'll still be there. It'll be an industry, but it'll be a niche industry. I mean, like if there's some, Sonic 3 comes out, right? My kids all want to see it. They love it. I like the other two movies. If I can't make it to the theater and spend, $15 per ticket, give or take. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You got 5 people in my family all going to the theaters for $15 a pop, or I can wait until it shows up on Amazon Prime and rent it for $10. What are you gonna do?
You can travel the 7 seas, bro. That works.
What are you gonna do?
With a Plex server.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the problem, right? Like,
or get a Cinemark pass, bro.
Yeah, a movie like
AMC
Nosferatu could have made $200-300 million at the box office, but instead people are like, oh, I know it's going to be on streaming in a few weeks. And in fact, that movie did go to streaming in like 20-some days, less than the 36-day window.
It's already
that's
available.
A problem. Yeah, and that's a problem. I mean, and they already put themselves in this position by when they brought discs into the market, they never had a rental period for them, right? So what you guys were talking
It was
about
very
before
brief, very brief.
Yeah. Well, no, what they didn't even rental price DVDs. They were direct to market, right? And that was the thing is they never, and that kind of was a difference for people. And that's one of the reasons why Austin Powers was so popular. You had a lot of these really what we considered first run movies, 6 months after they were in theaters. You could go to a Walmart and buy it right there.
Well, Tom, I want to get Brian's take on this because, we talked about the Plex server earlier in the show, and there are still collectors out there who want physical media, and there's a market for it, but it's an ever shrinking market. Brian, what's your take on how collectors are going to be responding to this stuff? Are they all going to go pirating?
Probably. I just got these bad boys today. I got ID4 and Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the 40th anniversary edition. I'm a physical media collector because, and this is how I was radicalized. I had bought every episode of Always Sunny in Philadelphia. You guys know that show?
Mm-hmm.
Right? One of my favorite comedies. And I'm going back to watch the seasons on Amazon Prime. I had bought every episode. And all of a sudden, I'm like, wait a minute. I feel like I'm missing an episode of Always Sunny. I remember some funny stuff happening in this season that I'm not recognizing. Go online, find out that they had decided to ban certain episodes of certain seasons that were considered hateful because of blackface or talking about gays or talking about trans. And if you've ever seen Always Sunny, dude, a third of that show is that.
In all fairness, I believe we can all, I don't know, safely say that Larry David is a hyper conservative who should be banned, right?
Yes, exactly. So I'm going back, and there's entire 3 or 4 episodes per season just missing. I paid for this it was like $4 an episode over a year. And I'm not getting a refund. It's just gone. When that happened, I contacted Amazon and asked them what was up. Where's the stuff I paid for? And they said, oh, we lost the license rights to that. But no, because they decided to unilaterally ban those episodes because they didn't want to take heat from the 2% of weirdos out there that are going to complain about a comedy show. They just took it from me against my will. That is when I actively went from I'll casually buy a Blu-ray disc to I'm buying anything on sale that I like. Anything when it goes on sale, when I see it in the store, if I like it, I'm going to pick it up. As long as it's in a format that's permanent. I might not even watch it. Most of my Blu-rays, my Steelbooks, and that Steelbooks is a better investment than Blu-rays, to be clear. But most of my Steelbooks are not even open. It's just in case. Dude, it's just in case. So when it comes to physical media, you should buy it. Buy physical media. But if you can't buy it, if you can't afford it, then download it. And there is 100% legal ways to do this. You don't have to use the 7 Cs. You don't have to boot up the Plex server and hit up Pirate Bay. You don't got to do that. You can get a service called Keep Streams. And when you see something you like, download it completely for free because it's your service. And then drop it on your Plex server for free. And then years from now, when that content is completely gone, you can still boot it up and watch it on your phone, on your TV, on your computer, whatever. But 100%, you should be keeping copies of the stuff you like because it will just be removed and you won't have anything to say about it because you don't actually own it. You own a license for it, a temporary license.
That's true of video games now, too.
Yeah.
With AI, they'll eventually be able to edit it. So they'll only let you see the version they want you to see.
100%.
And I didn't know this about Sony. I'm not surprised if they would do it on streaming because Disney owns the show now, but I can't believe they would do it to one you purchased.
When you purchased it, bro.
Wow.
Same with that. Remember that cartoon Final Space?
Yeah.
I bought every season of that, and it was just removed because they lost the rights to it.
See, that I've heard about. I've heard a few edits here and there, but usually when they do edits, it's generally only the streaming version and not the purchase version.
No, the purchase, my purchase version.
That is fucked up, dude.
Same with certain episodes of Practical Jokers. I bought every single episode of Practical Jokers. Certain episodes, like the one where Joe becomes a couch and people sit on him, for some odd reason, they just removed that episode. There's no explanation for it whatsoever, but I purchased it. Now it's gone.
Hey guys, you know what else people have purchased are Salty Nerd Podcast memberships. We got a gifted membership from Kaliki Oki for one Salty Nerd Podcast membership. So I want to thank Kaliki for gifting that. Real quick before we get out of here, there was one more story I want to touch on. This will be like a lightning round for all of you guys to chime in on, which is basically a story that I don't think is getting enough attention right now, which is a lawsuit against the new James Gunn Superman movie. This is actually something that could potentially have major impact on the opening of this film. So the Superman estate basically is suing Warner Brothers Discovery to block the release of James Gunn's Superman movie in key territories. And when we talk about key territories, we're talking about Canada, the UK, Australia, stuff like that, major film distribution markets. And the reason for this is because the copyright laws in those countries are different from the ones in the United States, where these powerful, rich studios keep extending the copyright on these characters. And this is a big reason why DC Comics has been trying to phase out the original Superman and move to like gay Superboy and stuff like that, which is basically because like now the original creators' estates are becoming co-copyright holders of the original Superman. And the thing is that with James Gunn's Superman movie, because these territories now have, different copyright laws where the original rights holders have gotten back some of their, rights to these characters, they're saying that they owe them money before they can release these movies into these territories. And this could be like a big impact on Superman's box office if they can't, hit like these UK territories. So I just wanted to get everyone's take, especially Brian, because, I know Brian follows this stuff with the Gunniverse pretty closely. So what do you guys think about this lawsuit and the impact it could have on the relaunch of the DCEU?
I don't think it'll have any impact.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think it will. I think what's going to decide whether or not the relaunch of the DCU is successful, which is either going to save or sink the superhero franchise for a while, is going to be whether the movie's good. And any weird trailers, people complaining about it, Snyder fans, lawsuits, all the dumb shit out there is not going to matter. As long as the movie's good, all that stuff is going to go completely into the trash can of history. It's not going to matter.
Odin, Tom, do you guys agree?
If the movie is just decent or bad, just for in spite of Brian, I hope that tears the film apart. I hope that it tears every dream of every DCEU film going forward down, and I hope that it all comes crumbling in a fiery blaze of glory, and remind them James Gunn's not that talented. Anyway,
what is wrong with you?
Peace.
Mic drop. Pro, what do you think about that?
They'll get ironed out. The bigger issue is they've got 9 years before some of these big DC characters hit public domain, and then everything goes into chaos. So, James Gunn, make the money while you can. Although Superman is called Superman, he does not always represent super. So, if you just want to call him man, that'll be okay.
Well, I know you're joking, but they did take the American way out of there for a while. Remember that. Yeah, no, I think Brian's right. I think at the end of the day, I'm not even sure who's bringing. I know it's the Superman estate, but it's my understanding like some of the more immediate family is in the movie, right?
I believe it's the Schuster estate that's suing it.
Yeah, so like, is this like the great grandkids that are like extended on that are pissed that they didn't get a piece of the dough or what? Look, at the end of the day, Brian's right. They're just going to pay him out. Shut them up. Yep. They're going to go away. Because what are they going to do? They can't really hold them out for too much because then you get to a point where it's a stalemate, right? Like they're like, look, first of all, you can't extort us for a bunch of money because we can just say the movie's not going to come out and nobody makes any money. Then we'll just turn around and sue you because we spent all this money and you made it impossible for us to release it, hence costing everybody a bunch of money. So at the end of the day, Brian's right. A few checks are going to be written quietly under the table. This is probably the last we're going to hear about it. Honestly, I'm surprised they are actually making as big of a deal out of it as they are, but I can tell you why they are. And it's because, Odin's attitude on the way out. There is this contention in Hollywood that is a mix of anti-Zasloff mixed with Snyder Bros that is such an anti-campaign against this that this thing has been under such a microscope. I've never, ever seen a launch of a franchise or IP like this be under such a microscope. Look, and I get it, the fisheye lens thing, like people are freaking out about this stuff. Like, it's like, I don't remember us ever being this pedantic about anything ever.
So true. It's weird, man. It's weird.
Let the movie come out. I can't believe I'm saying this. Let the movie come out and let's judge it then.
Tom is saying this. Tom is saying, can we be less reactive, please?
Like, I mean, I get it too, but I'm like, come
You've
on.
gone too far if Tom is telling you to relax.
And I mean, and it's true about Zaslav. They have treated him like Trump in Hollywood ever since he's taken over Warner Brothers. Yeah. Nothing he can do is any good. Nothing. They can find a way to twist it. Just how they treat Bob Iger, it's the absolute opposite to him. So nothing he can do is right. And again, I don't agree with everything he's done. Same thing with James Gunn. I don't have as much faith as, I'd like to have with this, but at the end of the day, it's like, what else do we have at this point? Because let me tell you something, guys. If Superman fails, superhero movies are done.
It's over.
Not just DC, but all of them. Because Marvel is also going to realize that shit, we are screwed. Because look at what the last few Marvel movies have made. If they weren't Deadpool or Spider-Man, and don't think they don't notice that. Why do you think Robert Downey Jr. and although he says he's not, Chris Evans is coming back?
Well, guys, we had a lot to talk about today, and we talked about it. I want to thank my fantastic panel of nerds for their participation. And we have one more super chat from JPS for $10. It's a bird. No, it's a plane. No, it's super terrific man with the power of positive DEI energy. Odin had to run because his kids were waking up, but I want to remind everyone to go to the pinned comment in the chat
buddy.
And check out his Raven Awards. Be sure to vote for that. Tom Connors Jr., any final thoughts and where can people find more of you?
Sorry, I'm just passionate about a lot of these topics we had today. Hopefully I didn't turn off any of your audience. I want to thank you for having me. As always, you can find me at Midnight's Edge After Dark, in all places where action figures are sold.
And of course, we have one more super chat to get to. Tom's best friend, Paulie from Latino Slant, for $2. Tom, stop interrupting.
I didn't do that bad today. Shut up.
All right. The man, the myth, the legend, WDW Pro. Thank you for being here today. Any final thoughts on where can people find more of you?
Well, folks, be tuning in this week. We've got the Disney earnings call coming up. That's going to be a big, big deal. And it could be the last one before Bob Iger has to squeal, because things are not looking good for 2025, as we've covered. Check me out on the Pro channel 4 times a day, every single day. New content on the way, as well as that earnings call. We'll have coverage coming up Tuesday and Wednesday on the Pro channel. Check out thatparkplace.com and That Park Place, the YouTube channel. And maybe I'll stop on over Midnight's Edge sometime soon. Tom, would you have me? Tom's
always.
done.
The door's always open,
Woo-hoo!
Especially the back door.
Speaking of back doors, Brian from the Popcast.
I knew
Any final thoughts? And where can people find more of you?
Said that, I knew it was coming to me. You can find me at right in about 15 minutes or so. We're doing the Brain Show, and there is a lot to talk about today. It's going to be great. We're talking about the hearings. We're talking about asteroids, deep seek, Selena Gomez, deportations, tons of memes. I hope you guys can join us.
All right. Alex, the salty nerd. What's going on with the Salty Gaming channel?
Unfortunately, due to external circumstances, we could not do a Salty Nerd gaming podcast last week, but we will be back, and it's probably going to be an extra long one because we have a huge amount of stuff to talk about when it comes to Helldivers and video games. So head over there, go to Salty Nerd Gaming, look that up on YouTube, and help support Judge Butters in growing endeavor to not have to go to work anymore. We're actually having a lot of fun over there. Go to saltynerddiscord.com. It is completely overrun with gaming people. Completely overrun. We went from like 200 people on the Discord to over 1,200 people now since we've started the gaming channel. So if you are into gaming whatsoever, jump in there. It's a lot of fun. We have a lot of cool people. And that's it.
Yep, Discord's very active. We still talk about movies and stuff like that on the Discord server as well. But a lot of gaming talk is in addition to that. I want to give a big shout out to Made You Say Butts, aka William Forbes, for making me have to redo the overlay here for our top contributors for next week. I'm sure Scotty Dub will be very angry to see that he's been unseated, but that's his own fault. Okay. I want to give a big shout out to everyone who gave us super chats throughout the course of this show. Mexican Iron Man, Jeremiah Hembry, Shorty Short, Made You Say Butts, Darth Maul's Lower Half, JPS, and Latino Slant. Thank you guys so much for all of your wonderful support of the show. Really appreciate you guys. And I want to thank WDW Pro for coming on the show today. As always, he is a officer and a gentleman. So thank you, Pro, for being here today.
Happy to be here.
And we're going to be redirecting you over to the Brain Show right after this episode is done. But until next week, Alex, send them off.
Stay salty, my friends.